Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Premier League Phrontistery with me, Tom Atkinson. Another absolutely superb weekend of football. I feel like I've said this for the whole season. I feel like maybe you think this is some kind of voice loop, but it's just me every weekend just basically saying, oh, it was a great weekend of football. But it really has been. I can't really think, other than maybe 2 weeks ago, a little bit boring. I can't think of any dull games. Again, the results are absolutely phenomenal. Just looking at distance, Burnley's win over Crystal Palace, absolutely wonderful game to watch. Chelsea spanking Everton 5-0. What a game. For people to come out, for John Motson especially to come out and say that's the best football he's ever seen in the Premier League is high praise indeed. And honestly, it was absolutely tremendous. You go and look at Liverpool, absolutely walloped Watford 6-1. Man United back to winning ways. Dramatic victories for Hull and Sunderland at the foot of the table. And in general, it was just an absolutely great weekend. I thoroughly enjoyed watching as many games as I could. And there's a few things I want to focus on. I really want to spend some time talking about Liverpool. We spoke last week about Chelsea. Saying Chelsea are genuine contenders, that Conte's done a fantastic job. And I know we spoke about Liverpool, but I feel like the mainstream media and that lower band of independent media, which maybe I come under, we've kind of poo-pooed Liverpool a bit, maybe not giving them the credit they deserve. I really want to talk in some discussion about what it is that's made Liverpool so impressive this season. Conte, we had quite a lengthy discussion about that last week. I really want to focus on Klopp this week because to be able to change Liverpool's fortunes within a season, realistically, if they carry on at this rate, he really will have changed their fortunes. And I really think that owes we owe minutes to him to discuss that. I also want to talk about who's top and who's bottom. There's a race either end of the table. For me, obviously, as you all know, I'm a Sunderland fan, so it's misery, except we won this weekend, which was absolutely fantastic. But for me, the bottom, from somebody dwelling down there, the bottom is just as interesting at the top. I think if you go from 17th to 10th, I think Southampton are sitting in 10th, there's 3-point difference between 17th and 10th. It really is that tight. So I really want to have a look at the teams in there and sort of maybe rank them by order of who's staying up and who's potentially going down at this part of the season. And obviously we're going to have a little brief overview of what's going on at the top. I also want to really have a look at the managers a little bit, with a little bit of detail, statistically analyse the managers, see who's doing what, and see if we can figure out what it is that what are they doing well this year that's really helping their cause. Once more, if you have any questions or if you have any pointers to make, please go ahead, subscribe below and leave a comment with your feelings. I'm an approachable guy, I've said this a couple of times. I really don't mind replying, I love a good discussion, so please don't be afraid to leave a comment below. You can also find me on Twitter. My handle's Tommyaki, it's at TOMMYAKKI. Again, feel free to follow, feel free to ask questions, feel free to poke fun at me, just not too much. I really hope you enjoy this week, guys. Really appreciate you listening in. Please, try your best to enjoy the show. And I think the first place to start is with Liverpool. The absolute thrashing they gave Watford, 6-1, was just fantastic football. It was an absolute joy to watch. And I remember 2013-14, the Brendan Rodgers Liverpool team, who seemed to score for fun, but realistically, I don't think everybody knew they were going to fail, and that Steven Gerrard slip was heartbreaking to watch, to be honest. But I think there was something in the back of people's minds thinking, okay, maybe this is just a one-off. And the Liverpool this year, I'm not 100% sure that's the same case. Klopp came out and he said, this is not the team of 2 years ago, this is a new group. And what is just absolutely brilliant about this team is they just seem a lot more attack-minded. And it's hard to say this, but the 2014 team were attack-minded. But this Liverpool team seem even more attack-minded. I've seen the press using the blitzkrieg, the stereotypical German word to use with a German coach. But in a way it almost is, isn't it? It's just shocking. Nobody seems to be able to keep up with that ferocious pace that Liverpool is setting. And if you look, Klopp's side seem to have scored, if they keep going at where they're at, they'll score 4 goals in 17 games this season, if the projections carry on. And it's just absolutely mind-boggling, isn't it? if you look at the teams who've won the league or they've challenged, if you look at Liverpool and City in 2013, 2014, they had, I think it was 11 goal scoring, 11 games where they scored 4 or more goals. You look at Man United of 99, 2000, 2001, 2002, that team that were really absolutely phenomenal and sort of rocked the league. Again, 10 games where they scored 4 or more goals. But Liverpool, that projection of 17 games where they might be able to score 4 or more goals is almost beyond belief. And I know it's not always sort of bona fide to really base your assumptions on statistics and projected statistics, but for them to be in that position now where people are predicting 17 games of 4 or more goals is absolutely nuts to even conceive the idea. It really is. But it's not just that, because Suarez was at Liverpool, and we all know what an absolutely wonderful magician-like player he is. But if you look at this current Liverpool team, they seem to be less reliant on the strikers. 11 games, they only had 5 players in 2013 and 14 who'd scored. And I think that was Suarez, Sturridge, Gerrard, Victor Moses, and I think Martin Skrtel or Daniel Agger, one or the other, I can't remember who. But after Jorginho Wijnaldum scored this weekend, that's 10 scorers this season. Sturridge hasn't even scored yet, but Liverpool have managed 10 different scorers. That is, in its own, that tells you what you need to know about this Liverpool side. They're not reliant on anyone. They have star players, don't get me wrong, the Coutinhos, the Firminos, the Lallanas, the Sadio Manes. They have an absolutely wonderful selection to pick from, because, I mean, you've got Origi and Sturridge on the bench to come in the striker role, and it's just absolutely baffling how fantastic they've been. Not only that, though, not just how well they've played, but it's who they've played against as well. They seem to have had, in my opinion at least, they had a relatively tricky run-in, to be honest, so far this season. They've played a lot of the big boys already and come away with 3 points. And if you, just going back to the sort of statistics side of things, Liverpool, the number of goal scorers, Arsenal and Chelsea aren't far behind, but they almost don't come close in the manner of which they score. That might sound stupid, but what I mean is Chelsea and Arsenal, it's almost we expect them to be an attacking force. Liverpool have almost been a little bit of a laughing stock, to be honest. We kind of expect Chelsea, we expect Arsenal to be up there. But if you look at the number of goals they've scored, if you just look at Liverpool's goal difference, 16, scored 30 goals this season though. Chelsea, the nearest club, then they've scored 4 less. And although Chelsea seem to have the better defence and obviously the better goal difference, the fact that Liverpool can come away with a very tricky fixture list in the early part of the season and have a goal difference of 16, having scored 30 goals, is something that we need to sit up and take note of. Just a superb team effort, team ethic, whatever you want to call it. But if you just look at that team and how well they're doing, you can't rule them out. You can't poo-poo them. You can't belittle them. And I think the most telling statistic for me, on Saturday they had 17 shots on target at Anfield. Sunday, not Saturday. They had 17 shots on target. And since Ofthe, the statistics company who collect all the data and analyse it, since they've been analysing the Premier League, that's the most amount of shots on target that they've had since they started collecting data in like 2003, 2004. That just tells you everything you need to know about the attacking threat that Liverpool hold. They could have scored 3 or 4 more quite comfortably. I'm thinking of the 2 Sturridge chances that hit the woodwork. I'm thinking of Firmino missed a good chance. So did Coutinho when he fired wide. It's frightening how much firepower they have. And we keep coming back to this point, and if you watch Match of the Day in the UK, or if you're outside the UK and you watch it, Alan Shearer said something like, yeah, well, Liverpool's defence, there's still an issue there. And I think there is. There is still a question mark hanging over that. I mean, they conceded against a very lacklustre Watford side at the weekend. But ultimately, he said that there's going to be games where your strikers don't click and they don't score. But when you look at the likes of Origi and Sturridge on the bench, you've got to think, how do you not score? With Firmino in such good form, Coutinho and Mane, where are they not going to score goals? That gegenpressing style they play creates chances. They didn't let Watford mull on the ball for any time whatsoever. They're in the opposition's face. And it tells you something, like we mentioned the other week, when Jose Mourinho goes to Anfield with his Man United team and he sets up for a point. That tells you all you need to know about how the opposition managers are going to treat Klopp from this point on. They obviously see Liverpool as a big threat. And for me, if Liverpool can keep it up, if they can come through the other side of Christmas with their squad largely intact, they could probably afford 1 or 2 injuries. But if they can come through with their squad largely intact, and maybe if they strengthen with possibly one other sort of dynamic central midfielder and another world-class central defender, and possibly look into a left-back, for me, they've got to be one of the teams you've got to talk about. They don't have European competition to worry about, neither do Chelsea. So in the end, it's going to be whether or not Man City are able to keep the pace. I think Arsenal might struggle to keep the pace, but Chelsea and Liverpool are really going to set the pace this season because they have such a more... it's a much more relaxed fixture list, really. The congestion is nowhere near as much. I think Klopp's the man to do it. So charismatic, gets the players going. They seem to want... Although they're a team full of leaders and full of desire and commitment and flair, they are still humble enough to want to play for each other. And that's the big thing. And I think that's what Klopp has them doing, which is absolutely fantastic in all honesty. And this leads nicely into the next point of... I really wanted to analyse the top 5, so to speak, because Man United and Everton sitting in 6th and 7th with 18 points. I think they're... I don't want to say out the race by any means, but I think they're falling behind the leading pack at this point. Arsenal on 24 points, Man City the same, Chelsea 25, Liverpool 26. Everybody's played 11 games. If you just look at that table from 1st to 4th, it's incredibly tight. One win takes anybody above anybody else. But going again with the goals scored, Liverpool scored 4 or 5 more goals than everybody around them. And you might not think that's a big number, but if you think a goal a game, that's 4 or 5 games where they could have edged out a 1-0 win. And just to have that firepower at your disposal is frightening. The same with Chelsea. Chelsea have scored 4 less goals, but their defence, Conte being that stereotypical Italian mould, will rely on a very solid defence. Whereas Liverpool seem a little bit more kamikaze at times. But it's working for Chelsea, it really is. 26 goals scored, only 9 conceded. Only Tottenham have a better defence in the league. And that leaves them with a better goal difference than Liverpool, but less points. And ultimately, it seems a very Mike Loan thing to say, but points get you above other teams. And Liverpool can have a poor defence by their opposition standards. But if they have an offence that is so dynamic and can put them into winning positions, that's such a deal breaker, isn't it? You don't need to rely on a defence if you have such a good attack or a good set of attacking options. And if you look at Man City, I think them and Arsenal will struggle. Arsenal obviously have a little bit to do to qualify, and City did themselves a massive favour with that fantastic victory against Barcelona. I think for City this year is a learning year, and I know Chelsea have a new boss under Conte, but I really think Pep brought in a new squad to put his mark down. Conte maybe not so much, still relying on the Hazards, the Costas, the Cahills. He brought Luis in, who's looked good. But if you look at City, they've really overhauled the squad. You look at Nolito, Gundogan, John Stones coming in. The goalkeeper, there's still some question marks hanging around about his form. But I think Pep's trying to put a blueprint down for this team. And ultimately, I think after next year, he is going to have a team who are going to be able to hit the ground running a little bit quicker. They might not have this initial blip as they're trying to understand this philosophy. So City fans, I think, might maybe struggle a little bit this year. They could do well in the Cups, but I think they might struggle in the league a little bit. And then if you go down, you look at Arsenal. I just don't know what it is about Arsenal. I don't want to write them off because they're a good team and they played very well against a very well organised and resolute Tottenham. But there's just something about the team that suggests that they're not going to do as well as other teams in the league. And it's hard to put your finger on it. And I think if you could, then you'd be able to understand why they had struggled for so long. You really would. But it's very hard to put the finger on. For me, it's almost like a lack of physicality or a lack of deviousness or cunningness. They miss that Patrick Vieira style player. And I think Alex Song did it very well for them as well. Is it Alex Song? Yeah, Alex Song did it very well for them as well. But they've lacked somebody in that mould of the the big bustling central midfielder who can go box to box and bully other players on the pitch. I don't feel Arsenal have that, and I think Gundogan, as much as he's a very technical player for City, he is also very physical when he wants to be. He can dominate in midfield. I also think, obviously, Yaya Touré's done that a couple of seasons, although he's on the downward slope now. I think you look at Chelsea, they've got Matic, who can boss a midfield, is absolutely fantastic, and needs nothing really saying more about him, to be honest. Then you look at Liverpool, you look at Henderson, who I think is coming into his own this season, and the likes of Lucas, who can slot into centre-back and be just as comfortable. They have this sort of presence in the middle that is... It's cunning. They're not afraid to do the dirty work, the leg work. I think Arsenal maybe rely on technique too much. I never thought I'd really say that as someone who really enjoys the possession-oriented systems with the shorter passing. But I just feel the other teams above them can mix it up. And I think Tottenham ultimately will bypass Arsenal because they've got the likes of Wanyama and Moussa Dembele. And I think really Dembele set a real good marker this weekend when he bustled his way from just inside the Arsenal half to the edge of their box, and was taken down by Koscielny. Whether you think it was a penalty or not, I think it was. It just demonstrated that Tottenham and City and Chelsea and Liverpool have another string to their bow that the likes of Arsenal and arguably Man United, though Carrick did very well this weekend, arguably the likes of Arsenal and United don't have that in their midfield. They don't have somebody who can grab the game by the scruff of the neck and put the hard yards in, unfortunately. And as much as this idea of like a leader in the club is really important at the top of the league, I also think if you look down at the bottom of the league, it's a very big question that you need to ask. And for me, I'm going to talk about Sunderland a little bit here, but the fact that Victor Anichebe put in what Paul Merson labelled as almost a perfect performance. He said you won't see a better centre forwards performance this season. And people laughed when a couple of us said this, but he looked like bloody Drogba at the weekend. He's thrown himself about. He was bullying defenders. They couldn't get anywhere near him. There was an outlet for the defenders to pump the ball forward to if they couldn't pass it out. And Anichebe was making the most of that. He's winning free kicks. He's bringing the ball down, bringing other people into the game. And the likes of Duncan Watmore and Jermaine Defoe thrived on what Victor Anichebe brought to that team. And if he can stay fit, and if he can keep bossing defenders as he did this weekend, I'm not going to say he's going to do it every weekend, because of course he's not. But if he can do it more often than not and turn out those kind of quality performances, Sunderland really genuinely have a chance of at least making a fight of staying up. You look at them now, they're 5 points. They're sitting at the foot of the table on 5 points. They've got obviously one win this weekend. But then you look, Swansea are in the exact same predicament. Nobody's really sort of throwing their name around as being abysmal or as guaranteed for the drop. So I think you have to give credit where credit's due there, and Sunderland certainly aren't down by any means. I mean, we've got 27 games left. They're on 5 points. Realistically, they need about 30 points. So they need to stop losing games, is the big key for them. And Swansea need to do that as well. And Hull have been very valiant, but ultimately I think their squad depth will hurt them. Their two strikers went off with what looks like lengthy injuries this weekend, so I think that's really going to hurt them. West Ham on the downward spiral. Crystal Palace going on that downward spiral too. I think Borough, City, Bournemouth and above look like they have enough solidity and quality in their teams to maybe not get sucked into that. But then again, a poor run of results and you're down in the battle, in the quagmire once more. But if I look at this bottom five of Palace, West Ham, Hull, Swansea, Sunderland, the question I'm asking myself here is, who in those teams is going to grab, much like I said about the teams at the top of the league, who's going to grab their teammates by the scruff of the neck and drag them out the quagmire? I don't think Alan Pardew is the kind of manager who inspires that fight in his players. And feel free to totally disagree with me, but I don't think he does. And the same goes for Mike Phelan. I think he has the team playing for each other, don't get me wrong. But when it comes to that cutthroat decision making, get your men fired up to get out of the bottom three, I'm not sure if they have that. I think Bilic does. I just think everything has conspired against West Ham this season, from the stadium to injuries to transfer. I think everything that could have really gone against them has gone against them in a way. But then again, you might argue on the other hand that you make your own luck, so to speak, and obviously West Ham are sort of guilty of not making their own luck. But I look at the likes of Swansea, and I fear for Swansea because I don't see Bob Bradley as the tyrannical, almost passionate style manager who gets his players up for a game. The discontent their fans singing. It was quite audible on Match of the Day, actually, singing get out of you greedy bastards, get out of our club was their chant. And to have such discontent off the pitch and on the pitch to not be able to do much. They've got quality in that team, and they don't seem to be able to turn that quality on paper into performances on the pitch. They got rid of Ashley Williams in the summer, which, well, I say they sold Ashley Williams. He went to Everton. He wanted to move. And they didn't adequately replace him. They brought in Alfie Mawson, who is by all means a great player, but he's no Ashley Williams, is he? And I look at Swansea and I fear for them. I fear for Hull just because of their squad depth and the injuries they've just received. So for me, it's between, unless there's a horrific run of results somewhere, Borough, Palace, West Ham, and arguably Sunderland have been in this position before, which gives them a slight edge over the Swansea and Hull. They know what it takes, and they have a lot of the squad remaining that knows what it takes to pull off a great escape. Can they do it? Maybe not. Maybe this is the year they go down. But if they put up half as much fight, and if the likes of Anichebe and Billy Jones was phenomenal, and Jordan Pickford was superb, and Papi Djilobodji finally showed why the club shelled out $8 million over a few years for him. If you can bring Lee Catamol and Jan Kirchhoff back into that squad and get that fight and drive back into the team and give enough quality for the likes of Defoe and Watmore and arguably Anichebe to thrive on, then yes, I do think they have a chance. And I think that's what makes the difference. There's players in that team like the likes of Lee Catamol and Victor Anichebe who are willing to roll their sleeves up, pull their socks up and get stuck in and get dirty. I look at the likes of Palace, West Ham, Hull, Swansea, and there's question marks. There's no name that clicks in my head instantaneously saying, don't worry, they'll be able to rely on such and such. Palace have quality with Zaha and Benteke, but are they willing to bust a gut and really get down and dirty and ensure they win games? I'm not certain. Same with West Ham. I haven't seen anything from them to suggest that the likes of Mark Noble are stepping up and really putting a shift in and dragging their team out of the mire. Like I already said with Hull and Swansea, it's just, for them, it's a different set of issues. So for me, it's going to be tricky to decide who it is who is going to get relegated. I definitely think Swansea. I definitely think Hull. And I am biased, of course, because I'm a Sunderland fan. But I think it's between, right now, looking at this table, it's between Sunderland, West Ham, Palace and Borough. I think Borough maybe have enough quality, and if they strengthen again in January, they'll be able to kick on. But Palace and West Ham, I worry for them. I really do. I see nothing on the pitch that suggests that they've got the fight, the grit, the mettle, the determination to kick out and get out of this poor run of results. You hear it all the time. People say, oh, they've got too much quality to go down. People have said this about team after team, year after year. Newcastle last year, don't worry, they've got far too much quality to go down. Of course they don't. Nobody's infallible. Everybody is weak enough in some way, shape or form, especially with a poor set of runs or an injury crisis, to be brought down into that relegation battle. So it's going to be interesting to see who finally succumbs to that. And I think another thing that makes a big sort of, what's the word? Gives you a leg up, so to speak, is the manager you have in charge. I already said about Pardew and Bilic and co. And I think if we can talk about this idea of managers in general, and we can talk a little bit about Jose Mourinho here. If you look at their Premier League points per game, just sort of going back to this idea of that a manager can make all the difference and good managers get the best out of their players. You look at Conte and Guardiola, they've got over 2 league points per season. Wenger and Ranieri, across their course of their careers, have 1.94. And if you look at Mourinho, he's struggling down the bottom of it all, to be honest. He really, really is. He's really struggling with United. And I think it's a concern that needs to be addressed, unfortunately. The only people who have less Premier League points per game since the start of 2015-2016 is Francesco Guidolin with Swansea, 1.26. Sam Allardyce with Sunderland, 1.2. Managed to keep him up. Martinez at Everton, 1.19. Flores with Watford, 1.18. If we're talking about making your own luck, and we're talking about leaders on the pitch, arguably you have to talk about leaders off the pitch. We've spoke about Conte, we spoke about Klopp being able to sort of get the best out their players. Is Mourinho, Chelsea and Man United since the beginning of 2015-16, 1.15 points per game. What's he doing to inspire confidence in his players? Not a lot, I'd argue, with those statistics to back it up, to be honest. I'd love to know what you think, though. Is Mourinho on that downward trend? a lot of the squad who he brought in are. I think Rooney is. I definitely think Ibrahimovic isn't as magnificent as he once was. Overspent a lot on Paul Pogba. I know he scored a wonderful goal at the weekend, but his performances, certainly you'd be expecting a lot more for the money you paid for him. 89 million, and he isn't putting in the highest performance week after week. God, it beggars belief, in all honesty. I'd love to know what you think, though, manager-wise. Do you agree that Klopp and Conte are the kind of people who drag their team with them to get to with tactical changes, with how they interact with their players, man management, etc.? Are they able to get more out of their players than arguably what Mourinho has done for Chelsea and United the last 2 seasons? Let me know what you think of that. I want to know what you think of the top 4. Who's going to challenge for that top 4? Who do you think is going to win? I'm going to roll the dice now, and I'm going to say it's going to be between Liverpool and Chelsea. It changes every few weeks. I said a few weeks ago I couldn't look past City, but since we've seen the Champions League come into play and maybe have an impact on teams, I think Liverpool and Chelsea are worthy of a shout. I say this again, I mentioned after Christmas we can obviously have a better understanding of what's going on, but right now Liverpool and Chelsea look absolutely insatiable. They look phenomenal, especially with their offensive capabilities. Let me know what you think on that. The bottom 3, let me know your predictions. I'm going to go with Hull bottom, Swansea bottom, Hull second bottom, and I think it's going to be a fight between Sunderland and Palace for that third bottom position. And I don't want to say Sunderland because I support them. But even if we do go down, and we go down with a fight, much like the same way Newcastle did the end of last season, Benitez was able to get some fire in their bellies and get the playing. Even if we go down, but we go down with a fight and the players showed that they wanted to play for the badge, I don't think that's a bad thing. So let me know what you think. Obviously, you can leave a comment below. Feel free to subscribe if you enjoyed the chat, so to speak. You can find me on Twitter, as I mentioned earlier on. You can find me, my handle's Tommyaki. It's at TOMMYAKKI. I do it every week. Do this every week. All my own opinions. Let me know how you feel. Do you think I was right? Do you think I was wrong? What would you like me to talk about in the future? Feel free to get in touch. I hope you enjoyed the show, guys. I hope you have a great week. Try and take it easy. International break coming up. Might miss an episode or 2 because of that. I'll be back with the Premier League once it resumes. Thank you again for listening. Goodbye.